Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
In a previous real side experience, and indeed innumerable others I have shared over the years, I had been shown various of the dark force created, human consciousness implanted ideas, those of a more apocalyptic, cataclysmic, depopulation persuasion, for this is indeed the current direction that the controllers desire humanity's overall experience to take. For as a slave species begin to rattle their chains, so necessary is it to escalate the measures required to contain them. The level of control of any enslaved species, then, is directly proportional to their resistance. An enslaved species will already have formulated the foundation of their overall situation, that of suppression, for as we each are the deciders of what we experience, this would apply to entire species also. That as ideas are created by the individual or species, so they are consciousness installed individually or collectively where it comes to a species, and effected then are whatever the created ideas happen to be as a simulated situation, again individually, or as the overall experience for a species. Additionally, can ideas as created by others be consciousness installed through agreement, and through the various means and mechanisms, so can the ideas of domination and suppression as created by an abrasively inclined species be accepted by another species, and this then becomes the experience as shared between the two, the slave-controller dynamic, but one that is dependent on agreement. Such an idea then unlikely to be consciously agreed with, and so necessary is it to present the idea, but in such a way as its nature is not one-dimensionally apparent. For if a dark force character intends to dominate, this will be the general design of their consciousness, and should they present an idea that seems beneficial on the surface, as a created idea cannot be absent of the consciousness which created it, so not only is the appealing surface idea agreed with, but the consciousness that created it, the ideas of domination, intentionality, also are taken on, and this then is the experience shared between the controller and those that now are the recipient of this control. Additionally, will ideas seldomly be in isolation, for much by way of additional ideas will be in association. The religious idea, as an example, will be laced with ideas of death and sacrifice, as is the actuality of all dark force created religions. And even were one to create their own religion, but utilize the religious terminology, even though they may be sincere, the very ideas they present are tainted with the death and sacrifice ideas all religions will embody, and experience will follow in reflected accordance. And so the dark force controllers can enslave species, and indeed continue to escalate their controlled situations, only as their ideas of control inclination are agreed with, made possible via this mechanism, that of idea attachment with that which is presented and seems beneficial on the surface. But although the controllers have now successfully installed into human consciousness numerous depopulation, extinction, event idea scenarios, even though all these ideas will be in effect now in isness reality terms, as everything in reality is its immediate effect, as the design of a consciousness, effect manifests the physical level much like a movie, where although complete and on the disc, the apparatus must process the completed movie to its conclusion, the apparatus being the body forms, so an idea can only reach its effect if maintained long enough to fully be processed through. And if another idea takes a prominence, so an altogether different experience begins its gradual rollout to actualization, as though switching the movie for another before the end is reached. And so really humanity decides as to its overall experience, which idea, be they dark force implanted dastardly situations, or those of a more beneficial nature, is held to long enough to become a physical level manifested, and we can be shown then the various potentialities on the real side. This experience would be one such example, and although lacking detail as to the cause, the earth had suffered a depopulating, dark force instigated cataclysm, and my view now was of the aftermath. I would be observing from an aside from the simulated situation, real awareness view, and marking the progress of one particular band of human survivors. In the previous real side experience of a similar cataclysmic nature, I would be assisting a group of humans that, although had been caught up in the effects, as they had been consciousness immersed individuals at that point, and so are resigned to the experience as generated through the human consciousness they are a part of, as they had however begun their awareness processes while in the post-apocalyptic world, so had this effect manifested as options and opportunities unavailable to overall unconscious humanity, where I would feature in their experience and assist them with their process. This would be so for this group of human survivors in this real side experience. They were open to the unknown of the isness, aside from their consciousness, and facilitating the means then where they could be assisted not only in regards to the recognition of the is, but possibly improved creational circumstances that would be more conducive for their awareness processes. For as I observed them, they would be in a desperate state of survival, as all survivors would be, having to fend off the malicious intentions of others, and secure what they could with what remained resources-wise. Interestingly, in this particular cataclysmic event aftermath, there would be a large train in operation, as though running on automatic pilot, where practically everything else technology-wise was defunct, and this train's route would cover a vast area of whichever country of the globe these particular human survivors were in. It reminded me a little of the movie Snowpiercer, where a large train was the only viable means of surviving the harsh extremes of cold that all environments had become. And although a similar train was in operation, the general global environments had not been rendered inhospitable, as was the case in the Snowpiercer movie, and survivors would frequently board and exit the train as a convenient means of transport. A curiosity, to be sure, and as to what maintained its power wasn't made apparent. I wouldn't directly feature in the experiential midst of the survivors that had been determined as those beginning their awareness processes, but would relocate momentarily to my bedroom. And although visually what then occurred would make little sense, the room becoming as though filled with the nuances of light and as though computer data coding, impressions revealed I was restructuring the consciousnesses of the group of human survivors. For if the ideas of consciousness change, so must what is effected from them, and by virtue of these humans being now open to assistance, I was able to assume the role they had provided for me. I had the agreement to reorder their consciousnesses, the equivalent of recoding a computer game, that effected would be more favourable circumstances for the humans, as I was altering the very ideas that were their simulated experience effected. It wouldn't be revealed in what way this would manifest, but as I said, they had afforded themselves more options through an awareness process taken on in the midst of their apocalyptic situation. A situation as yet to befall humanity, if indeed it does, but one in effect now in reality, and where these humans, and indeed all of consciousness immersed humanity, would be caught up in if it comes to pass. The scene would switch, and I would be observing an individual appearing human who had been formerly Dark Force affiliated, but now was stepping up and deciding to become more aware, and to assist us with our various real-side galactic projects, etc. As we release the agreements of the consciousness, as we proceed with our awareness processes, we become progressively less the effects of it, including all idea agreements we have in relation to others, including where the nature of the agreement may affect as the potential ability of others to at any moment harm or eliminate us. Generally, this is agreement the dark forces have managed to have installed in practically all consciousness, which allows them the ability to bestow harm upon anyone they choose, and eradicate them if necessary. And for those beginning their awareness processes, there will be much by way of agreements to be faced and released. They will be initially very vulnerable to the dark forces, as they retain the agreements in association with them that allow their demise at the hands of the dark forces, until such time as such agreements are released. Until then, oftentimes the newly stepping up individuals are afforded protection by the guides or other new friends, again as agreement permits. We only can assist others according to the agreement parameters they set, allowing this to be so, as we each are the architects of our experience, and in relation to the extent by which others can feature, the impact and roles they can have within our experiences, etc. This particular former Dark Force character was stepping up, as I said. He was very vulnerable then to attack and eradication by the Dark Forces in all their expressions, and he was positioned initially within a large stone temple of a kind, as he established intent with the ears. Standing to one side would be another individual, human in appearance, who was assigned as his protector in these initial stepping up stages. The Guardian would be dressed in Superman's iconic attire, and although his identity wasn't revealed, evidently he either was an aware being or perhaps a real guide, charged with the safety of this former Dark Force character. Impressions revealed the stepping up individual could potentially prove to be a valuable asset also. The controllers tend to be natural risk-takers and generally have developed themselves that they are very capable and can wield influence far more than the average slave, and so, should they step up, they can be very instrumental. It seemed his protection would be maintained. He would be relocated from the stone temple he was residing in with the Superman Guardian, and now positioned in the equivalent of a kind of safe house, under the watch of an entire group of awareness-becoming individuals. A little like where those under witness protection are secured in houses for their safety. For indeed, he would be advised to remain in the house, and even though some of the group assuring his safety would periodically leave and return, the former Dark Force individual would heed the warning and never set foot beyond the house's confines, very likely until such time as he had released enough agreements of his consciousness that he was less vulnerable to Dark Force abrasive imposition into his experiential affairs, and wouldn't need quite the same extent of protection therefore. If the house could be construed as representational, as houses tend to represent the consciousness, with the groups of individuals that share ideas where experiences then converge, shared ideas that formulate, if only momentarily, as a collective consciousness, so the house the former Dark Force being was secured within, amidst his protectors, would represent the idea that was this protection afforded a situation. To step beyond the house then would be tantamount to withdrawing agreement from the idea that was the individual's protection. The scene would switch to where a group of beings, those on their respective processes of awareness as impressions revealed, were attempting to seal a portal or other, and their efforts were in relation to the protection of the former Dark Force controller. For as he had agreements retained still with many expressions of the Dark Forces as yet to be released, hence the necessity for protection, as I said, this included agreement to the more creationally powerful and prominently positioned ill-intended body types also. At this moment, this former Dark Force character was marked for elimination, and there would be undoubtedly repeated attempts on his life. Evidently, he was an individual that would indeed be a great asset, and should he then begin to operate in awareness beneficial capacities, would undermine the controlling systems throughout the simulator. For one such dark force powerful body form was intending to make a move on this individual, and to do so he would have to traverse from the area of creation he resided in to the current location of where the former dark force character was being protected. The means by which this would be accomplished was via a portal seemingly, the very portal the group of aware beings were attempting to shut down through a complex series of actions that made little visual sense to the personal self. They would, however, be unsuccessful as it transpired, failing to seal the portal, which became activated, manifesting as swirling spirals of light, and what was emerging through the portal was a large, two-legged, dragonic form, the powerful Dark Force being that was electing to destroy the former Dark Force character, or at least attempt to do so. As every situation experienced is based on agreement, evidently the arrangement of agreement ideas was such among the participants involved that the group of sincere awareness becoming beings would fail to seal the portal the dragon was emerging from, and not only would it manifest in their midst, but it would absorb them also, as though rendering their bodies down to their very atoms and assimilating them. With this done, the dragon would begin to make its way to the position where the former Dark Force defector was located, as it would stride confidently through forests and dirt tracks, the environment that it seemingly had to traverse to reach its target. Nothing was revealed as to the dragon's identity, though it was a form where the secondary personal self had been established, as opposed to just an animal body type directly animated by real awareness prior to the formulation of the free will secondary self, a being of immense creational power and standing within the Dark Force hierarchies, as I said. And if it would be able to destroy the Dark Force defector, or indeed if those charged with its protection could repel the dragon's efforts, would be according to what the former Dark Force individual decided. For he, like all of us, are the deciders of our experiences, and in relation to others, according to the consciousness agreements we harbour. And so, overall, different individuals in different circumstances, stepping up, human survivors in apocalyptic situations, and former Dark Force characters, now effecting for themselves altogether alternative experiences, with the inevitable Dark Force interferences and expected attacks. But recognition of the is the imperative inherent with the real awareness that we all are, that animates through all the created body forms, and eventually must come a moment where even the most dastardly at least consider the possibility of being more than just their created consciousness.